Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from passionate Reds, only on All for United.
Hello and welcome to All for United with me, John Foster, MUFC. First of all, apologies about my voice. I do apologise. I've had a bit of a tough 24 hours, but I'm through the worst of it, I believe. So we'll crack on anyway. A real interesting show tonight. I think I'll put up mixture of opinions, possibly things that people watching this may not agree with. Some may agree with it, but it's just our opinion. So let's just see how this conversation goes. It will be all about the protest, of course, as the thumbnail says. But before we get into it, let's just say hello to everybody. John, how you doing, mate?
Good evening, John, and welcome everyone. Happy Easter to everyone.
Oh, happy Easter. Do you have my Easter tree?
I've just noticed it actually, yeah.
Well,
is that a proper Easter tree?
Yeah,
I think I've seen one before.
It's the first time I've heard of an Easter tree, to be fair.
Well, I normally have a few, but I'm only doing the one this year because we've got kittens.
Nice. Very nice.
Bainesy, you okay, mate?
Yeah, all good, thank you. Yeah, all good. Obviously being Thursday, Good Friday tomorrow, and chill out and stuff. But yeah, all good.
Nice one, mate, nice one. Vicky, you okay, mate?
I'm good, yeah.
Good. And Stu, welcome back. How you doing?
All good, thank you.
It was actually a message that you put in the WhatsApp group, wasn't it, Stu, about we're doing something for the protest, and I think it was always going to happen. I don't know when the right time was, but obviously we decided on now. But I will. We can see the scrolling message along the bottom, so we're going to try and cover some of these points and just see where the conversation goes. Really, we were speaking before we went live. Vicky, obviously, you brought up quite a few points that a lot of people was in agreement with. So, do you want to just give a brief outline on your overall thoughts, and then we can get into the detail as we go along?
Yeah, sure. I was just thinking about the 58 boys are going to do a protest on Saturday, where I actually have spoken to a couple of fans that are attending the match, and they know not a lot about this protest, and they were just saying like, "Oh, I might be just turning up and we might miss the first 15 minutes of the match." And I said, "Well, you might miss first 50 minutes of the match. You might not miss any of it at all, because it could be as little as 20 people holding their Man United bags, saying that they're protesting against Glazers. We could be having that because we've had it before. I generally haven't heard of this group before. Adding that age makes you feel like it has got like a lot of respect, because obviously they've been supporting United for so long, etc. But does it actually, like, they're anonymous, aren't they? So we don't know if they're just going, if we say we've been supporting Man United since 1958 and things like that, that we've been going for that period amount of time. But they might just all be a load of 20-year-olds. We don't know. They're anonymous. I don't agree with that it'll make much difference. And, all the Glazers are going to do is just throw some money at the fans and say, look, we heard what you said. We're going to do something. They've already said, like, the new project of Old Trafford, that's all come out like on their web page and their Twitter account. I think it's sort of to try and silence things maybe, but there's no concrete about anything that's actually still going to continue to carry on. But then I always go down to where they threw money at Man United last time. We got some good signings. We got Varane, we got people, and we got Ronaldo, but we're still at minus 98.37. Sorry, not a million. It's still not enough. You still didn't give us enough. Still not having enough, and that's my opinion. I think it's not going to amount to much.
Yeah, I think. How do you actually say if it's going to be successful? I think looking back, the Liverpool one, I think that was successful. We definitely made an impact. Whether or not I personally agreed with everything that happened, I'm not too sure about that. However, we did make an impact. It was successful. There was one after that was laughable. And yeah, I really don't know how this is going to go, because I don't think there's been much behind it. Go on, Stu. You give your brief thoughts, mate.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of with Vicky, really. Obviously, you know, the name, it could be a bit of a liberty. It could be a bunch of kids, in which case it will be a liberty. You shouldn't be utilising or calling yourselves 1958 unless there's some real substance behind it. So I think Vicky's right on that one. My lad will be there Saturday, and I've said to him, whatever you do, don't get involved. Go straight to the ground, go straight in and watch the game. My worry is that there will be a faction of clowns that will be outside there, and they will have a right go at people, match game fans who want to go in and watch the game, irrespective of their feelings. Because here's the thing about a protest, and here's the thing about fans in general, and here's the thing about organisers of protests. You don't know each individual's personality and what they're thinking. Everybody is not a fan of the Glazers. We're all well aware of that. But many people like us, who are law-abiding citizens, you know, think a protest is a good idea done in the right way. But actually, really, what will it achieve? What's it actually going to achieve? Because if you can scare off billionaires like that just because you're crying about this or you're crying about that, you know, billionaires don't become billionaires by being frightened. Billionaires are cutthroat. They're ruthless. That's how they make the money. You know, they save every penny. That's why they are billionaires. And you have to look at the bigger picture and the longer picture and the wider scope of this. And the wider scope is, with Chelsea being sold for £3 billion currently, then we are going to be at least a £5 billion business. And you tell me anyone that's just going to chuck £5 billion in today's climate at a football club or at any business without any kind of leveraged debt, and there will be some kind of leveraged debt, because nobody's just going to give you £5 billion and wipe the debt out. It will happen. And what's going to happen then with these owners, whoever they may be? How will that work, you know, in the future? So there's a hell of a lot to consider before you try and protest, because what are you really trying to achieve? Now, again, Vicky was right. She talks about the release of the stadium. I think that'll cost a phenomenal amount of money to redevelop Old Trafford rather than knock it down. I think it'd be a lot cheaper to knock it down. So I think it's going to a hell of a lot of money it will cost. We will have to borrow more money to do that. But that's what a business does. There's no problem with that. As long as you can churn the interest payments, which we can, it's not too much of an issue having debt against the business. Whether or not they take dividends is another point of contention, isn't it? Because some people don't like it. But Bainesy, you know, you're a businessman. That's how it goes. You invest in a business, you expect dividends. So there are certain things you've got to put to one side, and there are certain things you've really got to consider. So I think if I was this group, and I don't know anything about them either, if I was this group, I would be thinking long and hard about whether or not there's any real relevance to this and what the end game is going to be. Now, I'm not saying I disagree with it, okay, because I don't say I disagree with it. But what I'm saying is you just need to have a lot of thought. And that's what I hope we do. So I hope if it happens on Saturday, there's more rationale behind it than just a bunch of thugs who could go in and cause trouble. That's what I want to avoid.
And that's what I'm thinking personally, is how legitimate it is. Because if you're going to be that particular age of people, you wouldn't be so quick on the timing of obviously of the poor run that we've just had. You wouldn't be so angry so quick. You would actually do it quite conservative more, because, you know, you think about it, you talk about it, you don't just go, oh, that's it, I've had enough, straight in with it. That's why I don't feel like it's legit, because I feel like it's just a lot of angry fans, and they've gone and said, well, I can't say that we're the class of 1994 or whatever of Man United fans. I'm like, you know, a really old respectable group going in quite angry. If they were going to do that, they would have done it a while ago. That these boys, you know, up for revolutionary and etc., but just don't feel it's genuinely enough to be hiding behind these people, saying that because I put this particular age, and saying it's men doing it, in particularly, that it's not being properly vocally done, it's not being professionally done or like well mannered.
Exactly.
And that's what I find, that this is just very young people going into it.
Yeah, if I could just jump on the back of that, I was just about to say the same thing. Stu, you was talking about violence. Vicky, I know you mentioned like youngsters. If you have a look at what that script actually said, it was swearing in there. Now, I can't imagine any professional group using swear words. I know we can all describe the Glazers many different ways, but something that's supposed to be very professional and organised, I don't think that particularly was. Come on, John, let's come to you next. Obviously, you had a bit to say on it as well. Do you want to just touch on anything that Vicky and Stu's mentioned first?
Yeah, I think basically I don't really know much about this 1958 group. Obviously, we live in a democratic society. Everybody has a right to protest, but I agree with what Vicky said. I don't really know what it will achieve. I don't really know the aims of this 1958 group. I could understand the frustration sometimes because a lot of the promises that the Glazer did promise following the Super League, like at the fans forum meeting in early June last year, they haven't acted upon it, such as the fan ownership scheme. We don't know where that's up to. They promised that they provide a detailed plan, and they haven't. I mean, some of the headlines this week in terms of stadium redevelopment, I mean, we'll discuss in more detail, I'm sure, but it's coincident. It's not coincidental that it's come out this week, I don't think. But I think going back to the Liverpool, when we got the game cancelled against Liverpool last year, the way it worked was that all rival factions, and there are rival factions in our fan base, but because we're all shocked and appalled by the Super League, we all came together, in the shock and the horror, and that's why it worked then. But then, as Vicky mentioned, they bought us Varane, Sancho, and Ronaldo in the summer, and they bought us off. And basically, we went back to our rival factions. And unless the only way you can get rid of the Glazers is if you bring different groups together, like we did a year ago. I mean, touch on Stu's point, and you mentioned violence. I remember I used to work at the Megastore around a decade ago, and it was during the green and gold protests. For those who remember them, and I remember the game specifically. It was against Tottenham in October 2010. It was the year we won the 19th title. There was a protest outside the Megastore, and me and my colleagues were working in it, and I think they broke a window, and I'd imagine Stu's dad is a similar age now to what I was then, so you can imagine it was a bit of a scare, come to think of it. But yeah, I think until we know exactly what this group's about, and until we realise we understand what their aims are, I just don't think it'll go anywhere.
Go on, Bainsy. What are your thoughts?
To be honest, it's slightly, I wouldn't say conflicting. I've got a bit more sort of knowledge about the group. I don't know them on a personal level at all. I've had an altercation with a few of them. So a few months ago, I forgot what game it was. I actually wanted to talk to Flex, who's the guy that runs United View YouTube channel. Really nice guy. He's people may have different opinions on him, but I've got to know him, and he is a genuine guy. And what happened was, they sort of walk away from Old Trafford and they do their sort of fan cam reviews where they get people in. I'm sure people have seen them online. And the group itself, the 1958 group, they actually mobbed the cameraman. They were starting to throw stuff and they were hurling abuse at Flex and the guys that were doing the interviews. Now, look, I'm all for whatever they may trying to organise now, and I'm sure that they've apologised. Maybe they've apologised to Flex about that, but rings alarm bells straight away. It weren't good, and we didn't know who they were. They had face masks on. They have hoodies. They had their hoodies up, so we couldn't identify them, any of them, and they weren't kids either. So it's a bit of a strange one. Something about the protest itself that they're trying to organise going to the pub or they're meeting at the pub at 2:00 or an hour before the kickoff. Something about going to the pub first, getting jollied up in there, having a few drinks, something's going to kick off. And to me, to make the right impression, because the media are now talking about these protests, it's going to take one thing to go wrong, and then the media are going to jump on that, and that's going to spread to everyone, rival fans, casual fans. It will get on the news, and it will be like, oh, look at these thugs. And it's not even going to be about the protest and what they're doing. It's all going to be about the potential damage that they cause while they're doing the protest. And this is exactly what happened during the Liverpool game, where the game got called off, and it was called off because people ran on the pitch. They didn't even cover why they ran on the pitch or who ran on the pitch, or what. None of that was covered. There was 10,000 fans outside Old Trafford that protest. That they didn't even care. There weren't even pictures in the media about it. So it's this group. I hope they're going into it in a more peaceful and a legal, more importantly, legal way. They have mentioned in that image, and they're sort of they've posted up a few times on their Twitter account that they want to make it peaceful and legal. But something about going out a pub and the way that they acted to Flex and those guys, it doesn't marry up, does it? So yeah, it's a bit. I don't want it to be an embarrassment, because again, if like we had a few months ago, where 25 people turned up and half of them had bloody Megastore merchandise, that's just an embarrassment. And again, it's just something else that the media can just jump on. Obviously, the club know, because they've released these statements about Ten Hag recently, and also the Old Trafford. And it wouldn't surprise me that there's going to be tons of security there and barricades and all sorts, more than usual. What I don't want it to be is it affect the performance on the pitch, because we need to get a win. We had the preview a couple of days ago, and it's really important that we do get the win. And I feel like that the protest, even though I do agree with the protest, don't get me wrong, like Stu said, I just don't think this is the right approach at the moment. And then quickly, my last point was that I don't think this will be the last one, especially organised by the 1958 group. They mentioned that it was going to be continuous. They said if this one wasn't as big, they're going to organise another one a week later, 2 weeks later, and try and rally up even more fans to go to the next protest. I suppose, the more protests that they do, the more that the Glazers may listen, and we may get a response. But like Stu said, they're billionaires. They're ruthless. They live in America. I wouldn't even be surprised if they even know about it. The only way really it's going to be affected if it affects their back pockets at the end of the day. I'm all for the protest, but it's got to be the right way. That's really my opinion on it.
That last thing that you said there is pretty much as I was going to sum up. So listening to yourselves for the past 15 minutes, it sounds like we all want to protest, but we want to do it in a proper way. And at the moment, it looks like this particular protest, we've got to be a bit wary on that. Stuart, I'm guessing that you would be happy with the protest. Put you on the spot a little bit. How would you kind of want to see it done? Would you want like 4 to 6 weeks notice? Get enough time to rally people around, as opposed to just flashing them out willy-nilly? Or
I'd do it at the end of the season now. I wouldn't bother doing anything in season. It's like I say, it's not going to achieve anything. Baines is right. The club will know about it. The players will get there well earlier, than they would normally do. I can't imagine it affecting their on-field, game. Well, you never know actually with our lot, because they just aren't playing well enough, are they? So, look, I am in favour of some kind of protest. I just don't know what would work and how it would work and how you're really going to open the Glazers' eyes to it. Because they've owned this for 17 years now, and they would have had, I guarantee you, the last 10 years, they'd have probably had 4 offers a year to buy the club from somebody. And there's probably been no different this year. But again, going back to what I said about Chelsea, that's going to change the whole landscape of how much a football club is worth and how somebody can now just come and buy. You know, Premier League clubs are particularly now have just gone completely off the map to regular business people. You've got to have a certain type of business person. And sometimes, although I don't like to say it, you've really got to be careful what you wish for, because nobody's got a crystal ball. And nobody, as Bainesy said, nobody can, you know, say with any degree of certainty that there isn't going to be any thuggery at the weekend. Nobody can say with any degree of certainty that 10,000 people are going to turn up. Nobody can, you know, suggest with any degree of certainty that the Glazers will look at it and start shaking with fear, because they won't, you know. And there's so many variables, unfortunately, to a protest, and there's so many outcomes that can happen towards a protest. But one thing that could happen more than anything is actually strengthen the resolve of the Glazers, and they could just turn around and say, fuck it, you carry on moaning all you like. I'm the one that's raking in 200 million quid a year. And, you know, so why am I going to bother and care about what you think? And so, like I say, there's so many different types of variables that can happen when you protest. And I guess the other thing I would say about it is any faction or person who walks around with a mask and a hoodie, I'm not really sure what that says about them. I am sure what it says about them, but I'm not really sure what it says about them. Are they true fans? Are they really bothered about the, you know, what Manchester United stands for? And if they, you know, 1958 has some kind of significance to them, I don't think so with a hoodie and a mask. Then their, you know, grammar and their punctuation and their structure of their statement would be far, far better than what it was. So I don't know who we're dealing with and why we're dealing with these people. I don't know whether Must or anything to do with it. I don't think they are. They seem to have distanced themselves from it.
I think there's a few of them that have retweeted their original post, not the actual MUST, but the people involved. I forgot his name. Begins with D. But he's
his name.
That's it. Yeah. He's tweeted it and he's said, you know, I'm all for a protest and blah blah, but as long as it's peaceful and legal, which is, I mean, I don't know if it will be, like you said, Stu. I don't know.
It's one of those. I mean, you know, you take your chances and you go on Saturday. But the other thing you should consider is that, you know, fans flock to Old Trafford for a reason, and that's to watch Manchester United. So they don't want to go to Old Trafford and then be confronted by a load of idiots.
Yeah.
Especially right now.
Yeah, exactly.
I know those true fans are still going right now to go and watch Man United. And, you know, Saturday, I'm not sure if everyone's like looking forward to this particular match, but you've got your season ticket, you support your club, you're going there to support your team and support your club. And, you know, if you're like for an upheaval of everybody, I think is Glazer out. I've never actually talked to a Man United fan that isn't Glazer out right now. Yeah. It's just, what do you do about it? Do you shove a couple of celebrity Man United fans and ask them to put some money on, and then like make everybody like put a t-shirt on and wrap your arms around Old Trafford and sing Kumbaya to say, I don't want this anymore? That's like the most peaceful protest you can have. But I just don't know what you go forward for a protest, because I think we're all agreeing a protest seems to just fall on deaf ears until they go, oh, get the PR to send out a little brief statement of what we're going to do. We're saying we're listening to you. We've got your back, and then they sort of just put a few nice faces in front of us saying like, oh, they're joining Man United now, and we're going to probably change Old Trafford, or just get a new stadium. I mean, generally, I know it's not everyone's biggest opinion. I would knock Old Trafford down, try and keep some of the stuff to build onto the new stadium, and say, oh, we're still keeping like the Fergie stand going, etc., etc. And the Stretford end would still have bits of it where it was from Old Trafford built into it. You can do all that to like still keep Man United alive right now. But what you need to think about is like right now, is this a very good time? No, it's not. Morale for a Man United fan as a team, as everything, is at an all-time low. We're like everybody's joke right now, and rather than rising above it, we're actually making more conflict, and it's turning more politician-y kind of way. That it's not how Man United have done things in the past, and it's actually become quite aggressive. And I'm not an aggressive person, so I don't naturally agree with it.
I think I agree with pretty much everything you said there. John, we spoke a lot on this show already about the negative influences. How could we get this protest to actually make a positive influence? And obviously, realistically, the Glazers aren't going to come out to say, oh, okay, you've had a protest, we're going to leave. But what good do you think can come from this?
Well, I touched upon, well, you mean on Saturday or with any protest?
Well, we'll talk about Saturday, but obviously it's going to take more than one, I would have thought.
Well, I think, touch upon what I was saying before. The reason why it worked last year was because you got so many different groups together to back it. And it's going to take something similar. I mean, Stu mentioned the Glazer billionaires. That means they're ruthless, and he's right. You need to be equally ruthless. The other way, you've got to try and include different groups. We've got supporter groups across the world as well, and you got to try and get them included in some of whatever response. Maybe people have said, boycott matches, boycott merchandise. Sometimes that can be counterproductive, but there's no one single organisation that is representative of all United fans. There are different groups within. I mean, Baines, you mentioned fan cams. I'm not a fan of fan cams, not a bit of it, but some United fans will follow them, and that's you've got to have protests where everybody's included in it. You've got to try and, because Manchester United's a global audience, you need to try and include, United supporters all across the world, and that's where you get pressure on. You can get supporters groups from across the world, writing letters to the Glazers saying they're not happy how it's run. I know most the recognised supporters group, but you got to try and include everyone in terms of the aims you're wishing to achieve. And if you have supporters groups and factions across the world uniting around something, maybe then the Glazers might listen, and because and then they'll say, if we don't listen, we'll pursue some actions, whatever they may be. So for me, that's really the only way you can achieve a positive aim to get change. And, we all want the Glazers out, no doubt, but it's going to take time, and you're going to have to work together to achieve it.
Mm-hmm. Go on, Bainesy.
Yeah, just on the whole, the protests and how best to organise one. I truly believe that we need a senior figure. Now, I immediately look at someone like Gary Neville, who has said recently that the Glazers need to sell. Now, if he can, I'm not saying we should rely on him to organise it, but what we should do is it needs to have a face, someone that's recognisable, someone that has a huge outreach, not to only United fans, but pretty much any football fan, true football fan will know who Gary Neville is, whether it be here or across Europe or even across the world. So it needs to have someone like him who is the face of the protests. Now, it could be the fact that there's, like we did it wasn't last year. Was it last year? Yeah, it was last year. With all the groups coming together, You had MUST involved. You had all the big YouTubers, all the fan cams. You had Sky Sports obviously covering it just before the protest. That was because it was unanimous that everyone came together to go against the ESL and that whole charade. Let's say it needs to have someone on the front of it. It needs to have someone can approach them, whether that be MUST. I mean, he's always at Hotel Football. And we say, look, we're looking to organise a protest. How do you think the best way to engage everyone, the safest way, the most legal way to do this? He will obviously, he knows what he's talking about. I mean, he runs his own club. So that's how I think it goes forward. And it can't only just be one. It's got to be, okay, we plan one perhaps at the end of the season. We plan one during the middle of the summer. We plan one just before the beginning of the season. And then we try and see if we get a regular response from the owners, because ultimately that is it, right? So it's about getting a response from the Glazers and also getting the right response. It's all fine then going, oh yeah, okay, fine, whatever. We'll chuck 50 million on glorified decorators to come in at Old Trafford and give it a paint job. Like that's nothing, you know. We want actual running of the club. We want football people running the club. We want regular investment. We're falling behind, and that's because of the Glazers, and that's exactly how we're trying to do. But again, no, it's that's how I think the protest going forward should be tried to organise at least anyway.
So Baines has got a point there, because I quite like that it does need a figurehead of some description, whoever that figurehead would be, Gary Neville or, like you say, whoever. And I think that's the right move. If we're going to be taken seriously, and the Glazers want to take us seriously, you need somebody like Gary Neville, or somebody with influence.
Rio Ferdinand, Gary Neville, you know.
I'll tell you one other person, if you're looking globally in America,
Beckham, yeah. I'm not sure if he's a.
I don't think he's the right one, to be fair.
No, I don't mean a main figurehead, but I'm just thinking you can have a figurehead, but if you're thinking you're going to have a global impact, then him in America, if you can get him to sign up to something, he will carry a little bit of weight in America, perhaps. The
problem with Beckham is if Vicky's kitten needed an ambassador, Beckham, he'd be the first to go for it. If the local Morrisons need opening, then Beckham, he's there. That's his problem. That's always been an issue.
It's too commercial, isn't it?
And that's an issue. We need somebody. We need somebody like Gary Neville who speaks well. He's almost, as Vicky said, he's almost got that politician type thing going for him. And maybe somebody like him would be ideal. Maybe somebody like David Gill, who's been on FIFA and UEFA committees, somebody along those lines. But it's going to be very, very difficult. And the other twist in the tail will be the new Champions League format in 3 or 4 years' time,
which is pretty much the ESL.
Yeah, we're guaranteed to have a slot in the Champions League. So, monetary terms, there's going to be a dip over the next 2 to 3 years potentially, but then the coffers are going to fill. I just think it's a very, very, very difficult thing.
Why are we not putting the whole class of 1992 in?
Well, yeah, the class of 92.
I mean, why not? Why not?
And by the way, this is Rio.
Okay.
I have 2 kittens, Rio and Vidic.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm a defensive girl. I'm always going to have defensive names. I wasn't allowed to have Raphael or Varane. So.
I wonder why.
So I stuck with some classic pairing.
Me and Bainesy like Varane, don't we, Bainesy?
Oh, yeah, we love him. I mean, I don't know about used to, but I do.
So we've got three things that come out to me now after speaking for 35 minutes. What we need from this protest, and I'll come back to Vicky if she thinks that this protest will actually achieve that. It needs to be professional. We need to have a bit of unity, and we need to have a leader. Now, at first glance, I don't think this protest has any of those.
No, and you also need the key factor. You need to hold the fact that everybody else's safety and everybody else's point of view needs to be respected. if you're gonna go and hound people and make them feel bad because they've got their ticket and they want to just go and watch the match because they aren't completely knowledge about your point of view, they haven't got everything in consideration of what you're going at, because not everybody has social media or not everybody has Twitter, things like that. So they won't understand all this. They won't. I mean, they might have seen something slightly on like Sky Sports News, but they've gone really down in my grade, Sky Sports News, on how to like be professional with football opinions. Sorry, my friend's just got the tweets out, so that's it. I've lost them. I don't think it's good timing at all, especially where the club is standing at a point where you're not hearing from the top, you're not hearing from the players, you're technically not hearing from your manager because he's just trying to get by. You're just at a standout point where we've just had some very appalling things off an international break. I don't think it's coming from a good place. I don't think you're thinking about everybody else's point. You're just frustrated and you're angry. And technically, as Man United fans, I think we're all feeling a bit like that. We're all feeling really disappointed. But rather than just go and support and think about your actions and think about how your point of view could come across, and you can think about who's going to be your next voice of leader, it's not going to be someone as small as this particular group. Especially with the way that they've handled it. If they handled it better, if they had a better spokesperson, then I think it would be different.
Yeah, totally.
But everybody is in agreement here. We need someone, and we do use Gary Neville, but I do feel like we should have some other people in the background that are like celebrity Man United supporters that can go, yeah, I agree with Gary Neville, and then I don't know, some sort of we stand together kind of T-shirts, and everybody buys them T-shirts with celebrities and everybody else wearing them. You don't win voices over by just fans anymore. I think it's been very clear with the red and gold, green and gold. I think it's very clear with everything that just happened before the season. These protests don't work. We need to talk about social media gatherings, building up a platform with a spokesperson in mind, but we don't have that bigger person. That's why we're using Gary Neville right now to say, this is the change, this is now. I mean, he did help with the Super League. Why is he confirming why he's not going that step forward to Glazer out? He just says they need to leave. That's all he says. If he was going to be that strong of opinion, I think with Gary, he would have been more aggressive right now. But he's got good points about the government, and I think that's his main project at the moment. Rather than saying, oh yeah, Glazers need to come out, he's not that fully invested. Now, that's what we need. Sorry, I think I am allergic to my kittens, by the way.
Yeah, you are.
Let me bring John back.
Aperitifs. Get yourself aperitifs, Daniel. That'll work.
John, I want to talk a little bit about what we'll probably see on this protest, and then we'll lead the conversation into what's going to happen after the protest, what we think is going to happen after the protest. So maybe just start off on what you're expecting to see on that match day. Then I really hope that we don't see violence. I don't think we might see the odd one or two, but I really hope that it's not that bad. But are you expecting a decent turnout?
It's hard to say, isn't it? I don't think it's not been properly planned. Some people who are going to the game won't have heard. A lot of it is social media driven as well, and I think there'll be lots of fans who aren't on social media who don't know about it, and it's very hard to see. We don't know if there'll be a couple of hundred, it might even be a couple of thousand, we just don't know. Where I personally think these kind of protests don't tend to have that many people attending usually. That's not to say it won't happen this time, but I think you will probably likely see some kind of protest, because obviously Musk did say they wanted a response from the club in regards to his fan ownership by the first anniversary when the Super League was announced. And obviously that first anniversary is coming up soon, isn't it? So I reckon there probably will be another protest, maybe a better organised protest, because we got 2 home games left after the Brentford, which is Bank Holiday Monday, and we got Chelsea, haven't we, which scheduled for Saturday, but if they reach the FA Cup, they'll be on maybe a Tuesday evening or something. But I think that you will likely see another protest, but it has to be planned better. You have to plan, let's say for the Chelsea game, you need to start planning it now if you're going to do a protest and get different groups involved in it, because otherwise if you don't, it's just not going to work. But for me, in my opinion, because it hasn't been organised properly, this one, I don't think will achieve much this time, but we'll wait and see.
Stu, you agree with that?
Yeah, what I was going to say was, you've also got to consider the last protest, not the Saeed one where 10 people turned up, but the protest before that. What really has changed? What really did it? What did it do? What did it achieve? They were always going to have to redevelop Old Trafford. It was always going to happen. It had to happen, otherwise it was going to fall down. So, did the protests really push that forward, push the agenda? I doubt it very much. We're always going to have to invest in players. So did the protest really push that agenda? I doubt that very much. We're always, the fan group and fan ownership, that is such a difficult task. It's not an easy task at all.
Was that the Ollie Out one?
No, the one before the L one.
No, the
main was in the Ollie Out one.
Yeah,
the
main Ollie one. Yeah, the fan ownership is always very, very difficult. Everyone was going about this 50+1. You have to bear in mind when Germany produced the 50+1, clubs were probably worth about 40 million euros at the time, not 5 billion euros. So there's a whole host of issues that I think the fans thought they brought forward. But when you actually look at it, take a deep breath and actually think about it, all those had to happen anyway. They really did. And so, again, I just come back to what is it going to achieve if we keep protesting, if fans keep protesting? What's it going to do? And is it going to dig a huge trench between, or an even bigger gulf between us and the owners? And the owners suddenly decide, you know what, you can keep doing what you like. I don't care. Because don't forget, I think it's about 15 years in between Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning one Super Bowl to the current Super Bowl, something like that. And it takes time, doesn't it? And I don't know how long they've owned the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for. I just think these guys, I don't think they care. I just don't think they care, really, whether or not people protest or not.
Just quickly on that, Stu, the whole, what did the protest do? It's a bit of a grey area, to be fair, because the last one, just after the ESL was sort of diminished, we did kind of get a response. It was the first time Joel Glazer came out in 17 years, first time since the ownership, he's actually fully come out and wrote a statement, and he said, right, okay, I heard you, I'm sorry, we're going to do this going forward. Yeah, okay. Old Trafford, I'm sure it was already in the plans. Maybe that sped up that process, and maybe that's made them realise. I think also in their ownership, this is probably the first time where you had the US media approach them. Do you remember Avram Glazer was approached by the journalist while he was shopping or whatever at Beverly Hills or whatever? So I think it did spark a bit of a conversation to be had from ownership to fans. And then the second point was that for the first, it's hard to say, but with the sponsors, that's where a lot of the money is coming from United, because obviously it certainly doesn't come from the Glazers. So the sponsors definitely, I know TeamViewer were looking to pull the plug. There were a few more sponsors as well around the protest that sort of question marked it and gone, hold on a minute, what's going on here? You know, this is really damaging us. I know Adidas got involved at one point. So that then had to spark a kind of response from the ownership as well. Look, at the end of the day, we had the protests and they're still here. So
that's how it's going to be, though, Baines.
It's always going to be, until there is a person that comes in publicly and he says, I don't know, an Elon Musk or whatever, and says, okay, I'm not going to spend 36 billion on Twitter. Hey, Man United, I'm going to buy you instead. Until there's someone out there that everyone can see and go, hold on a minute, he's just come out and said he wants to buy Man United. That's where I can see someone or a very large protest to say, look, you've got a buyer there, off you go now. But again, you know, who's got 5 billion?
And that ties into the point, you know, like she mentioned, if it is going to cost 5 billion to see them.
Exactly.
They knew if there is a proposed buyer, whenever that may be, if they have Musk agreeing to it, you have supporters group agreeing to it, you have all people who back the idea, then that's a way that you can get everyone on board, and that will put pressure on them. You know, you got to be, you know, your political phrase, soft power. That's how you got to get influence.
The problem you got with that, though, John, is that it's not just 5 billion quid. It's 8
No,
billion.
I know that. I know.
Or it's 9 billion, because if somebody lays out 5 billion, they're going to want.
They're going to go, oh, well, okay, that's a good negotiation.
They're going to want 8 billion back.
How many more can you go, please? Yeah.
And herein lies the problem. It just isn't 5 billion. It's what goes.
No, I understand that. Yeah.
And secondly, Bainesy, do you know what? I'd agree with you about the sponsors until 3 and Hyundai dropped the balls with Chelsea.
Yeah.
They were giving it all the bigging, weren't they, about Ukraine? Well, they're still on Chelsea shirts, both 3 and Hyundai, and that's because they get so much money back off it. And this is the problem with TeamViewer. TeamViewer now have realised how much wealth and how much money they can get back off just being a shirt sponsor of Man United. Cola, Tezo, they're all the same, aren't they? You know, they can see it. And so,
there was talk of them having that uproar until, and I'm sorry to mention his name, but Mason Greenwood happened, and they got all shy behind that, and they took away, I'm not sponsoring him anymore, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Then everything died down from that. Now it's almost like they use Mason Greenwood as a scapegoat. You know, these all people are millionaires that will use any excuse to like continue on going. And unfortunately, they used him. And now I'm not supporting Mason Greenwood from that. I'm just saying that's how sponsorship went on from there. Like, oh, well, we're just pulling our name from him. And that's how things went forward. Nothing else was spoken about. We never thought about anything else. And that's how things went forward. But, you know, our transfer record is 6.4, 1.93 million. So they know that they're still getting triple the amount.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And what it's all about association, isn't it? Yeah. You know, with him in particular, it's all about association. I think it's happened with a couple of Chelsea players in the past, where they've disassociated themselves with the player, but can't actually bring themselves to do it with the club. Nike, they're all the same, and you know, Adidas with us. We'll put a statement out, but don't worry, we realise that our 750 million actually bought us in 1.8 billion already. This is how it works. This is the problem.
No,
you know,
I will say that as this has all been such a shame. I mean, and obviously we get to talk about this, and then obviously betting companies have all their sort of input as well, that I'm sure that they have backup on spinning of things, because there's me getting all excited because I'm about to get my Ten Hag bet in that I put in December. if I could talk about anything right now, I'm going to talk about something as positive as like we're going to get 10 on Monday. I'm going to be a very happy girl because Man United love doing transactions on a Monday.
Well, it'll be interesting because Monday's a bank holiday, isn't it? But,
yeah.
And then we play Liverpool on the Tuesday.
Yeah, but they don't think about that right now.
I think the announcement, honestly, if that announcement is going to happen, it's going to happen after the Liverpool game.
You think?
Because we'll end up losing the Liverpool game. I'm not very optimistic about that.
It's an American stock exchange, isn't it? They've
exactly.
got
and then they'll be like, "Oh, okay, that was a bad game, but here you go. You know, here's our new manager." It won't surprise me.
Do you know what? It doesn't matter if I'm getting 10.
I saw something the other day. I think Ben tweeted it. Something like the value if you put like 1,000 in on the United in the stock exchange when it opened. Apparently, it's worth less now or something. I can't remember the exact statistics.
Yeah,
the share price hasn't gone up that much, has it? Since
their stock exchange has gone down by 1.3 in the last 5 days.
That's right.
Sorry.
But when you consider the thing with shares is that it's a revolving.
The revolving thing, but they go up and down. This is the first time that they've actually gone past the 1- mark in a very long time, and that's saying something considering the season that we've had so far. But all I will say is that come Monday, Tuesday, I don't care. Getting Ten Hag. Gonna love it. Gonna absolutely support this new system. Have faith in it. I'm gonna have complete faith in it. I'm gonna get my 45 quid on my £5 bet, and that's it.
45.
What I want. I'm already up myself 40 quid. So that's gonna continue to feed my Varane header golf fund.
I've got this tweet here which I mentioned. So $1,000 invested in Manchester United on the 12th of August 2012 when the club debuted on the New York Stock Exchange would today be worth $992. In the same time, Apple is worth twice as much now. Amazon's worth 7 times as much, and Tesla's worth staggering them out. So basically, the value has come down over the past.
But Amazon, Netflix, and all that never existed then. We were all running.
And 5 years ago, you'd have been making more money on it. It's just one of those. Isn't it?
It's just the industry they're in, though, because obviously,
it's just one of those.
Tesla, Amazon, Netflix, they're all emerging. They were in emerging markets. Now they're in the IT sector. And Man United, at the end of the day, they're a sports company, so your shares are always just going to go up and down anyway.
Well, the point is that
we've been on a plateau for the last 5 years. The last 5 years we've been on a plateau. It's now actually going down. It's not even doing this little bump where we were up and down, keeping the plateau. We're actually going down now. We've not been making commercial success for a little while. That sort of thing will speak to the Glazers more. And that's because people aren't buying merchandise, by the way. I know recently we had that thing where we were looking at the Twitter format where we were seeing Chelsea saying that we're going to go successfully. Liverpool, we're winning titles. Obviously, and Manchester City, they were all going like this. And we had come and click here and you'll get Ronaldo for 30% off our site, his shirt. They took that off after quite a few retweets and said Manchester United always go for success because they know that wasn't making money for them. Yeah. And now they're starting to realise that people aren't buying shirts. People aren't we've got so many tasteful shirts that you can buy that aren't genuinely Man United merchandise, but you wouldn't know. That is actually starting to show. But I will stop talking now. But thank you very much. Sorry.
Good point, Vic. Good point.
Sorry.
I was just going to finish by saying, yes, Bainesy knows I've been Ten Hag for a while now. I put I didn't put my money on Ten Hag, Vic, like he did, but I was Ten Hag. and I've been arguing my points for a while, and we'll just have to see if if I'm right, if I actually do know anything about football, which is unlikely. But no, I'm
If
quite
you
excited.
I know. Good.
Well, hey, look, you know. I wish I'd known now, and I'd have put a bet on and raked in 45 sheets like you, Chuck. But no, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to see what he does. Looking forward to his overhaul of the squad, see what the balance is like. I'd like to see him, and certainly get a better return on Varane next year. Sorry, Vic, but I would. I would like to see. Well, I'll come clean with you, Vic. Me and Bainesy.
I've been watching you. I've been watching what you say, and I've gone.
Yeah. Well, you haven't shouted at me yet, so. But yeah, me and Bainesy had right at the beginning. We had different views, didn't we? But no, I like him. He's a great player. He needs to stay fit. Next season. He's got to stay fit next season.
I generally don't believe the stomach upset and last week. I generally don't believe it's got anything to do with him being ill.
I would probably agree with you, but he's one of those. I've never called for him to be dropped. I haven't, and Baines will back me up on that. I haven't. But what I said was at the very beginning, he will need time, and I've just been able to highlight a few errors that he's made over the period, and I only did that because there was way too much emphasis on Maguire, and I just felt it needed to be not balanced out, but it isn't just Maguire.
I just cut my 30 seconds in about Varane before I bore everybody. I would generally say that we all talk about Ronaldo, but if we go talk about Ronaldo when he's not happy, Varane is just a professional football player, but he's won the Champions League, he's won the World Cup and stuff, and he keeps his mouth shut. And they do tend to put him into like the post-match stuff. And he generally is a professional football player. But if I was someone, I would be trying to keep him sweet rather than him having to deal with half the crap that he gets dealt with right now. Like, not a consistent back four, not a consistent back two to play with. I would be really upset with him. I've won a World Cup, I've won a Champions League 4 times. I've won all these other titles, yet nobody keeps me sweet.
we have come to the end of the show. I think that's the making there. So we'll look forward to that one, absolutely. I think it's been a good show tonight. I think
really good points, to be fair, by everyone.
We have, absolutely. I look at some of the things that we spoke about, and I think it's a lot of it's common sense, and I think if you had to dissect anything, I think we just done it in a very good way. It's a shame it had to end, actually. We could have gone on further. I feel like we should be organising something between us. Thank you, everybody who's watching. Thank you to everybody on screen. Really appreciate it. And we shall see you again soon. Thank you, guys.